What's good, everybody? It's your boy Dakota. I've just done so many takes of this video. You have no idea, but I'm just here to tell you thank you so much for supporting the show. If you like what I'm doing, subscribe to the channel, leave this video a little like, leave it a little comment. If you're an audio person, leave me a little 5 stars, maybe leave me a little review. Whatever you can manage, it all means a lot and it all helps. And go ahead and check out all the links I got in the description to support both myself and whoever the guest is this week. I always try to make sure that I leave links in the description so that you can follow the fighters once the show is debuted. And I hope you enjoy this episode. I've been in Jersey now for a long time, man. I love it. I love the boxing scene in New York and New Jersey, even though it's
Yeah,
not maybe what it once was in the glory days of boxing. There's still very much, there's a ton of talent. We got Khalil
yeah.
Ko and Shadeja Green, and there's plenty of talent out this way. Um,
And not only that, man, I'm so envious of you. I just saw a post on Instagram though that New York is gonna look like this in 3 months, and the Christmas decorations and the snow, and I was like, damn, I would love to go to New York, man.
it's a pretty cool place in the winter. There is something about it,
Yeah, yeah. I actually got to fight at the Madison Square Gardens. I was there when they were lighting up the Rockefeller tree.
Who did you fight at the Garden?
This was like a tune. This was like to come back. It was a terrible fight, but this was just a comeback fight, So I can't remember who it was, but this was during the obviously during Christmas time, give or take. So
Yeah, the Garden is definitely my favorite venue of
that was
all
cool.
time.
Yeah.
Also, kind of where I got my crash course in on-site journalism, because it was like I'd never covered a fight, and then all of a sudden I'm backstage at the Garden, and
Yeah.
it was like, oh fuck, all right, we're right here in the big leagues now. Let's fucking keep
What
it.
what fight were you covering?
The first one I did at the Garden, I want to say, was an Amanda Serrano fight. So it was in the
Oh,
small room, but it was still, it was a big deal. She's from Brooklyn, it's in New
yeah.
York City. There was, a lot of hype around that fight. Then I covered a couple Berlanga fights. I got to cover the Oshaki Foster Abraham Nova fight. That was a hell of a fight. So yeah, anytime I get to go to the Garden, man, it's something special. But let's get into you, Ronny Rios, because that's why
All
we're
right.
all here today. And I want to thank you so much for coming on today. You got a
Of
huge
course.
fight coming up against Nick Ball, October 5th. Before we get into any of that, I just want to say I've been a fan of yours for a long time, bro. Obviously, I'm a boxing head. I've been watching you since like the HBO days. And you're really like a fighter's fighter, man. You've really taken on all comers and like the best of your era. So just big ups to you. Is that something that's always been important to you? Is just like, I want the best of my era?
Of course, of course. I've always wanted to be like obviously like I've always enjoyed Hall of Famers and stuff like that. And back then you couldn't pick and choose, back then they were just boom. They would just throw you in there. And that's kind of the mindset that I've always had. It's like back in the amateur days, you can't pick and choose. It's like if you win, you keep advancing. So this is like the same thing, Granted, I didn't win all of them, but I'm still here. I'm still giving it my all. I'm not here just for a quick payday. I wanna make history for my city and win this world title, man.
So let's go back to your last fight against Polanco. Talk to me about the time off in between after the Akhmadalio fight and the fight with Polanco.
Yeah, I did feel it. I'm not gonna lie, I did feel it. My timing was off a little bit. My defense was off too. I rewatched the tape and I did notice that I got hit with like about one or two uppercuts. And looking at this fight that we're gonna fight against Ball, that's something that I really extremely have to be careful because he has a good uppercut. And so that's one of the things that I have to work on, is obviously slip more angles, but then again it's like you can't just go into you just can't go into a big fight like this with one game plan. You got to have a backup plan, then you got to have a backup plan, so we have more than one game plan heading into this fight. But like I said, man, everything is going great. Camp has been good. The weight has been good because, in my opinion, weight is just as important as your training. You know, you can have an outstanding weight, you can have an outstanding camp, and then 8, 10 days before the fight, you cut 20, 25 pounds. That's just gonna hurt you, you know?
Oh, dude, anybody who watches my shows know I'm like the most anti-weight cut person because it just seems like whatever size advantage you do wind up having, you give up in, whatever you have to give up in the gym to get down to that weight. At least in
Yeah.
some cases. That's not in every case, of course. Did you feel different at 126 against Polanco? Did you feel stronger? Did you feel more?
I did. I did it. Not only that, against the MJ fight, you know, my hat goes out to MJ. He beat me fair and square. But I'm pretty sure you're aware that the first time I weighed on the scale, I came in over by close to a pound. So they gave me 2 hours to lose that pound, which actually took me an hour and 45 minutes to lose that less than a pound. So you did feel a little bit, but at 126, I felt a little bit stronger. You know, I did come in a pound under, and as of Saturday, I was already at 134 after my workout. So as you can see, the weight's just coming off, especially the way we're training. Man, this has been a good camp, but it's been a tough camp, to be honest with you.
Why the time off after Akhmadaliev? Because he's obviously a tremendous fighter. It wasn't a bad performance on your part. Was it just you needed a break from the game, or what was the reasoning for you?
No, for me personally, I honestly it wasn't the fight itself because, like you said, he's a terrific fighter. He didn't have two belts for nothing, you know. It's just like I had a missed fallout with my previous team. As you can see in my Polanco fight, I have a new team, So after the fight, I was just like, I don't want to do this anymore, and then I retired for 2 years, and I gained a lot of weight. I gained like a good 30, 40 pounds. So I started going back to the gym, but I started going to my current head coach's gym. And the thing is, me and him have been friends for over 20 years. We were part of the same stable, Jesus Gutierrez. So we came up with the same coach, the same gym, but then he left. He started his own thing. So I started going there to lose weight, just to lose weight, because I was like, damn, I saw pictures, and my wife was making fun of me. She's like, damn, look at your cheeks. I know. And I was like, damn, I looked at the picture and I was like, and I remember I was like, babe, am I really that big? And she kind of like, she didn't say yeah, but she nodded her head. And I was like, oh my gosh. Like, all right, that's it. So I started going to the gym. And, probably about 2, 3 weeks in, I started missing the gym. I was like, damn. Then I started thinking about the world title. I was like, man, I know I can win that title. So, I started taking it more serious. And then I sat down with my coach now, which is Jesus Gutierrez and Frank Barajas. And I was like, hey, look, guys, I was like, man, I got that itch. I want to come back, but I want to come back and I want to give everything I have. And then they're all like, hey, yeah, sure, let's do it. So then we started getting ready for a fight. And this was supposed to be December of last year. We started getting ready for a fight. And then October 28th comes around the corner. And I remember this like if it was yesterday. We were in bed asleep. And then my wife's phone rings. And then my brother-in-law had passed away. 43, 43 years old. He passed away from a heart attack. I remember I was like, damn, so, at this time, I was like, man, we were getting ready for fighting. Camp was going good. And I was like, damn, I was like, you know what, dude? I was like, my wife has always been there through thick and thin, win or lose. She's always supported me. She's always been there. She's always been like, obviously, she's my best friend. So I was like, I can't do this. I can't leave her at a time like this. So I met up with my head coach. I was like, hey, look, dude. I was like, look, man, I just lost my brother-in-law. I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to take this fight. And he's like, oh, don't worry about it, brother. I'm already 2 steps ahead of you. I already called the promoter. I let him know. I was like, hey, more than likely we're not gonna take the fight. So I was like, oh man, I was like, damn, it's like I appreciate it, man. So then we pulled out of that fight. Obviously, I was spending time with the family, and you know what, man, I was really close to my brother-in-law too, so I felt it too.
Of
I felt
course.
it to this day because he was like my brother too. And then I pulled out, and then we contacted the same promoter, and he's like, "Oh, okay, just stick around." Sure enough, the fights weren't being presented to us, so I had kind of had a feeling that maybe he was just trying to build up his fighter. So then I was like, okay, I was like, I'm gonna reach out to my good buddy Robert Diaz. I reached out to Robert Diaz, and then Robert Diaz and I we sat down, we had dinner, And he's like, "Hey, let me ask you." He's like, "I want to know because Robert Diaz and I have had that relationship more than fighter friend."
Right.
So he's like, "Why do you want to come back?" And he's like, "Oh, I want to come back to win a world title." I was like, "I feel like I have unfinished business. I still got that itch. I'm still running. I'm still doing all this. I started sparring already. Everything's going good." And he's like, "Okay." He's like, "That's what I wanted to hear. I don't want you to come back just for the fight, just for the money." And I was like, "No, man." I was like, I got money saved up. We own our house, and stuff like that. I had a job at that time. He's like, okay. So then he got me the Polanco fight. Sure enough, I quit my job. I went 100
So
miles
you,
out. I
you
went
you were working a
100 miles an
job
hour.
in that time off. You
I
were
was
working.
working a job. Yeah, I was working a job for this place called Avalon Bay. I don't know if you ever heard of it.
No.
It's an apartment complex. So I was a leasing agent. Yeah. You know what? It's funny because I still talk to my previous boss, my manager, my coworkers. So, actually, as a matter of fact, one of them just reached out to me yesterday. He's like, "Yeah, how's everything going?" And they all watched my fight. So that was pretty cool. So I still keep in touch with them, man. It was like, I didn't leave off on a bad note. I put in my 2 weeks, I got ready for the fight, and then I'm here now.
Well, I always like to highlight that too, because I think people make the assumption they see a fighter on TV or whatever that they don't have to work another job. But
Yeah,
sometimes that's just how it happens. You take time off. Did you like
yeah.
formally in your mind retire, or it was just you
Oh
retired?
yeah, I was done. I was done.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
I hated the sport, because there's a lot of things that happen behind closed doors,
sure.
and I hated the sport. Like I don't want to do this anymore. And then it was one of my brothers, my oldest brother. He's like, "You know what, dude? I don't think you want to do this because you have that mindset of what happened in your previous camp, with all this stuff." And I was like, "Man," I was like, maybe he's right." So then I started working with my new team, and sure enough, it was different. I obviously I regained that passion. Like I said, man, I just got out of the gym right now. I put in a 3 hour workout. I'm about to go back to the gym in a little bit, work out for another hour and a half. So right now we're working out anywhere from 3.5 hours to 5 hours a day, and not only that, we're watching tape. The one thing that I did notice, and I'm gonna continue to preach about this, is the eating habits. You gotta have
Yeah.
good eating habits, especially the workout, the intense workout that you're putting in, the calories that you're burning. What you put in your body is going to be a major, major difference. That's what's going to make you want to go another round.
It's almost the biggest half is like because if you can do all the
Yeah,
work in the gym, but if you're eating all fucked up, it's not gonna work.
yeah. And it's not just the eating part; it's the rest too. You can't just eat up. You just can't eat super clean, train super hard, and then you come home and you're out and about. Not drinking, but obviously doing different stuff, activities. That's gonna wear your body down too. Because when I go to the gym, and I give it 100% all the time.
Well, let's talk about Nick Ball for a sec. This is a big fight. This is a big opportunity for you. But first impressions of him as an opponent, you have the common opponent of Ray Vargas. You caught Ray obviously when he was a little younger, maybe a little fresher, but I don't think he was too different against Nick. What are your thoughts on him as an opponent and as a champion?
No, you know what? Like I've always said this, and I'm gonna continue to say this. Nick Ball is, he's a true champion, man. He went out there against Ford, and he had that draw against Ray Vargas, but then he came back and he won that world title, and he's undefeated. He's a hardworking guy. He's exactly what I thought. I knew he was gonna be a quiet guy, but I knew he was gonna work. I knew he was gonna be like one of those hardworking guys. Like, he's the first at the gym. He's the last at the gym. And like I said, man, he was very respectful. He was really cool. Him and his promoter, and but yeah, I knew he was gonna be a hardworking guy, and sure enough, he is. But like I said, there has to be that. I have to figure out a way to win this fight.
Well, it was funny because I watched just like the tail end of the presser you guys did the other day, and I knew you'd be taller, but you're a lot taller than he is. Do you see that as an advantage, or do you think like
Actually, you know what? It's funny. I thought I was gonna be taller than him, but no, he's not as short as I thought he was gonna be. He's actually taller than I expected. But I mean, he's gonna come to fight. He's gonna try and I know he's gonna try and muscle me around, which is okay. At the end of the day, this is a fight. You can't just be moving around. You gotta against somebody like Nick Ball, you have to obviously stand your ground. You can't let him get too comfortable pushing you too.
how did you even like? then this is, I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this, but how did you get yourself to this point, right? Because it's like you've had a couple of losses, but in moments where it seems like you really need a win, you get it. Like there's been a
Yeah.
couple of those moments in your career. How do you keep kind of not reinventing, but you keep improving on yourself. You keep learning from the game. You know what I mean? A lot of people can't do that after they lose.
I mean, you just gotta learn to pick. You just gotta learn to pick yourself up. You know, you just gotta have that hunger, that dedication. Like I said, I've lost a few, but I kept getting back up. You know, and I think a lot of it to do, honestly, honestly, I'm being honest, is having the right support system. You know what I mean? It's like if you go out there and you give 100, if you go out there and you give it 100% and you lose, you come back, any fighter is going to be heartbroken. Anybody for that matter is going to be heartbroken because you lost. You're like, damn, you know, and a lot of things go through your mind. And, you know, but when you have the right support system, for me, for example, like, you know, you always think like, oh man, what if I lose? What if I lose? Like, oh, they're not going to want to, they're going to be different around me. They're going to not want to hang out as much with me. But no, everyone that I still hang out with, no, they always treated me the same. They came over to my house. So to me, that's a big, 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 big help. You know, all the support system. That's the number one.
Having real like authentic people around you as opposed to
Yeah,
people that are along for the ride, and if they feel
yeah,
like the ride's not going smooth, they hop off.
yeah, exactly, man. And trust me, man, I've learned. It's funny because like you learn the hard way, you know. And I'll be honest with you, I was mad for such a long time because you know just some different stuff happened. I was very 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 mad, and you know at times you still get mad. At least I do. But then you're just like, you know what, dude? I was like, I was talking to myself. I was like, you know what, man? I was like, everything happens for a reason. Right now, I got real people around me. I was like, at the end of the day, man, that's all I can ask for. I just wanted the opportunity, which has been presented. And I just, you know, I'm not gonna go out there, oh, what if? No, man, I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna give it everything I got. And you know, I'm gonna try and make history for my city. Santa Ana, baby.
He's been able to out hustle some good fighters. Ray Ford's a good fighter. Ultimately, he lost a bunch of rounds against Ray and then was able to come back. What do you feel like you have that those guys don't?
We'll find out, you know, because those guys are tough. I'm gonna be honest with you, those guys are tough. But then you also gotta remember that Ray Ford went up to 130 after the fight. So like I said, as a
Yep.
fighter, as a fighter, killing yourself to make weight is very hard.
What do you feel like is different about you as a fighter, at least in the last couple of years, maybe even call it like the post HBO era? What do you feel like is different about you as a fighter now as opposed to then?
I've experienced losses in the worst way too. I've experienced losses in the worst way, and you know you learn. Either you pick yourself up after a loss and you learn from it and you move on, or you can just dwell on it and it's gonna eat you alive. You know, trust me. You know, there were some times, not just the loss itself. Look, I'm gonna be honest with you. The loss itself, you know, it does worry you for a while, but then after a while, time heals. It's what happens, you know, after the loss. You know, the people that you thought you can trust and stuff like that. That's the heartbreaking part. That's the hard part to get over.
I mean, it sounds like just from everything you're saying, it's more so it's less that you didn't love the sport anymore. It's that you didn't love the game anymore because that's a
Yeah,
different thing. Having to maneuver yourself through the world of boxing is different than actually just the work part where you're in the gym, you're learning, you're getting better. That's the fun part. The part that sucks is the rest of it sometimes.
yeah, yeah. No, like I'm saying, man, there was a point where I was just, you know, when I retired the first time around, I was so fed up with them, and I didn't want to go to the gym. I didn't want to watch boxing fights. I didn't want to talk about boxing. I was over it, and it wasn't the fight itself. It was just what surrounded itself with it. I was like, you know what, you know, when you think about, well, at least for me, when I think about boxing, I think about where I was at in the past, and you just think about what was said to you, what was done to you, and you just don't want to hear about it. You don't want to think about it. So, you know, once you pass that stage, at least for me, once I passed that stage, I fell in love with it again. You know, I go back to gym. Like for example, yesterday we went to go spar at Robert Garcia's. They have the best sparring there. They have the best fighters there. probably in the nation, maybe in the world for sure. And we sparred for 8 rounds. We finished our workout, and then obviously We came back, and I was here just hanging out at my house with my boy. And I was like, you know what, man? I was like, okay, I got to go back to the gym. I have to work on some stuff. I got to do some sprints. Sure enough, I went back to the gym, and I was like, I'm only gonna go for 1 hour. I ended up working out close to 2 hours. So I was like, little stuff like that. It's like you gotta regain that passion. You gotta lose yourself in that moment. And sure enough, when you think, oh, I'm only gonna go work out for 1 hour, then it turns into 2, 3 hours. Like today, it turned into a little bit over 3 hours. That's the old me. That's when I know I love the sport.
How did you, and whatever you're comfortable sharing, but how did you know that you needed a new team? Like, what was that moment for you? Was that just something you figured out in retirement? Like, I need
So
to,
of course, of course, of course, retirement. And I think, because I'm already over it already. It's in the past. It's funny because I was thinking about this recently too. Like I said, I still get mad at the fact that things were said to me, like verbally, and you hold it against it. You hold it against people, especially me, because I never spoke up. I never spoke up. I never said anything because at that time I thought that was a real friendship. I thought, but it wasn't. But you know, that was one of the things for me. And today I was just like, you know what, man? I was like, you just gotta forgive. You gotta forgive because if you don't forgive, not for their sake, but for your sake, it's gonna eat you alive, and you're not gonna move forward. You know. And trust me, man, I was mad. I've been mad. At times I still get mad, whether if I ever see stuff or I hear stuff because it was just stuff that was told to me. But then it's like, you know what, dude? I was like, I can't let anybody slow me down. So I was like, I gotta forgive and forget. Like let's just move forward, man. And sure enough, today I went to the gym and it was a freaking outstanding day.
yeah, and sometimes just letting go for yourself, right?
Yeah. It's healthier for yourself too, man. You can't hold no matter what people said or no matter what they did. You gotta learn to forgive for your own sake, because then you think, at least for me, I think I don't want to get too close to this person because what if they do the same thing, or you kind of start acting different because they bring that to your attention. But you just gotta move on, man. If you don't move on, you know what, man, there was a point where somebody was telling me, oh, you're like this, you need to change this and that. And then for a long time, I was like, man, it's like maybe he's right. But then I started thinking to myself, like, you know what? I was like, no, man, he's not right. There's a reason why my wife married me. There's a reason why my kids always tell me, I love you, dad. You're the best dad ever. There's a reason why my friends keep coming around. This because they fell in love with me, not for whatever I was doing in boxing. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, bro. I don't know if you got to see a couple of weeks ago, Angelo Leo getting
Oh yeah,
a gnarly knockout over
yeah,
Venado Lopez. And when I was watching that, I don't know if your fight had been announced yet, but I was like, there's a couple parallels there, bro. Like he took a loss and took a couple years off and came back, had himself a couple comeback fights and found himself in a title shot. And he really capitalized on it and got like a pretty
yeah,
legendary knockout. Did you take any
yeah.
inspiration from that or see those parallels?
No, it's just it's just obviously it's that mindset, man. He came back, even for like even the fight, because I honestly thought Vanilla was gonna take it. That was just I thought all Vanilla was gonna take it, but then I started watching the press conference. I started watching the weigh-ins, and I was just there was just something about Angelo Leo. He was confident. I was like, oh man, this guy's confident. And they were fighting his backyard too. So I was like, man, this guy's really really confident. And I was like, damn. I was like, I won't be surprised if there's an upset. And I remember I told that to my coach that like 2 days before the fight. I was like, hey, he looks confident. Sure enough, that he did one of the I wouldn't say it's a major upset. He it was a little bit of an upset, but it was probably the knockout of the year that I've seen so far.
It was an upset too, in the sense that it felt like Venado was always winning on the B side. And then as he became champion, it's like he's now the star. And
Yeah,
right when he's starting to hit that moment, Leo took it from him. But it was a really dramatic. And I would have said it was an upset just because, at this point, Venado been champion 4 or 5 years. You know what I'm saying? He's an
yeah,
established guy. But I saw a bunch of parallels between that fight and the fight that you're about to get into for sure.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. Yeah, like Angelo Leo, man, my hat goes off to him, man. He probably scored the knockout of the year if you really think about it, because he knocked out the champion. It wasn't like like somebody else that he was a challenger and he knocked out the challengers and the champion. So that was a vicious knockout too, man. And I felt bad for Venado because I wish him a speedy recovery. Obviously, they released it. They had a bleeding in the brain, so I was like, damn, that sucks. As somebody in your weight class, you always want to like keep an eye on him, but you never want to wish anybody any bad in this sport, man. So hopefully he has a speedy recovery.
Yeah, that was definitely a scary moment. It was a scary knockout when it happened because it was one of those, his head bounced off the canvas.
Yeah,
You don't always see somebody go that limp, you know what I mean? And it was a very serious shot he took.
yeah, it was. It wasn't like you said. His head bounced. And there was a time when I thought he was gonna get up because he kind of leaned forward, but I was like, damn, and then he went back down. And I did notice that Angelo Leo took a little while to celebrate, but I was like, man, I was like, he should have probably known by the way he fell that he wasn't gonna get back up right away.
Ronnie, should you win this fight against Nick Ball, what do you kind of see for the rest of your career?
You know what, man? Right now, I'm just focused on Nick Bob because this guy he's a champion for a reason, and he's undefeated. So this is the guy that I want to go out there and I want to look sensational, and it's in his backyard. We went to the UK. That was my first time going to the UK. I loved it. But right now, everything's on Nick Ball. All my attention's on Nick Ball. All my focus is on Nick Ball. I'm not looking past anybody until after October 5th.
Well, it's a tremendous opportunity. It's a great matchup. And once again, I've been a fan of yours for years. It's been great
Thank
watching you through the years. You're a fighter's fighter. And I really appreciate your time, bro.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much for being patient. And like I said, it's always a pleasure talking to you. And I'm gonna be envious of you in 3 months when when New York is all lit up.
Hey, if you're ever in the neighborhood, give me a ring, brother.
For sure, we'll do, man. I'll take you up on that offer.
Yes, indeed. We'll talk soon, bro.
All right, man. Have a nice one.